But the main aim here today is really to look at why BEE is important. We've heard about the new codes. The proposed changes came out in October of last year. I'm sure many of you have seen those codes. And for those of you, and there are those businesses out there saying, you know what, it doesn't affect BEE. I don't deal directly with government, or I don't deal with any of the parastatals or big companies or banks, so I don't need BEE. You are grossly misguided, I can promise you that. You are going to need BEE if you want to do business in South Africa. It's a transformation imperative. It's taken very serious by our government. The BEE Council of South Africa resides in the office of the President. It's chaired by our Deputy President and by Jacob Zuma himself. So BEE is something that isn't going to go away. People sometimes hope it might go. It's here to stay. And I think what's important is to say, why is it here to stay? What are some of the new changes that may come about, just to prepare people for what is really going to happen. Now, when people first saw these new codes, like I said, they came out in October. Some people, I think, might have even gotten a heart attack. They said, this is impossible. How are we going to comply with something that really looks a bit out of the ordinary? And when I chat about some of them, you will see yourselves that it is quite difficult to comply with BEE, especially those organizations that have not started the process of transformation. Remember very quickly, BEE is not something that's new, right? BEE came out in, if you look at the first codes of good practice, were gazetted in 2007, so people say it's very new. No. The precursor to BEE is things like the Employment Equity Act, your Skills Development Act, which came about just post 94, 98. Right? So when you're looking at BEE holistically, you've got to realize that if you haven't started to comply and to transform, it might be very difficult for the business. But moving into looking at the new codes, before I do that, I just want to mention a few things about BEE. If you yourself as a business right now need to comply, somebody's asking for a certificate, there's a few things you do need to know. The first thing you need to know is that BEE is measured in a 12-month period. Generally, verification agencies would offer you 12-month financials because it becomes an easier piece of documentation to look at to audit you. However, you can be audited on any 12-month period. All right? So what's important about that is that if you want to score points for elements on BEE, around skills development, training your staff, around enterprise development, assisting all black SMMEs, and social empowerment, your community upliftment projects, it has to be done in that 12-month period that you're going to be measured on. All right? So if you're going to be measured on your financials and they ended in February, and let's just say you're rated in June, you haven't done anything for social empowerment, you make a quick spend just before your audit, but it will not count. All right? That's very important for you to know that. Very quickly, some examples. There were companies who said, I'll never do BEE, I don't do work with government. They needed to increase the water consumption in the area and also for the business. So Dwarf came in and said, we're happy to do this, where's your BEE certificate? They didn't have it. Guess what? They didn't get it. They got rejected. They said, come back when you have your BEE certificate. You know anyone that's in the gambling board or gambling industry? That new person that came on board and they said 1st of October this year, if you do not meet minimum requirements, one of which you have a 20% black ownership, we will not renew your gambling license. So what am I basically saying is that BEE has become very serious. You take law firms, for example, with the banks. Banks will give you a percentage of work based on your BEE certificate. If you're level 1 or level 2, they'll give you X percent. If you drop in your levels, they will give you less work. So like Don said earlier, it's not just about doing work directly with business, it's also about doing work with businesses who do work for government as well. So what about the new codes and what are the new changes? The biggest changes in the codes is two things really. The first is they now say instead of 7 pillars of BEE, you would now only have 5 pillars. And out of those 5 pillars, 3 elements are now be considered priority elements, which means if you do not comply with those priority elements, you will be penalized further on your BEE certificate. So what are the 5 elements? Direct empowerment, which is your ownership, your management control. You then look at your skills development element, training your staff, your employees. Your fourth element, which becomes very important, is what they call enterprise and supplier development. Your last element is obviously your social component, where it says, are you assisting communities, individuals, charities, etc. So out of those 5 elements, if you do not comply with ownership, do not comply with skills development, skilling your staff, and you not comply with enterprise and supplier development, you will be penalized in your scorecard. What they did initially say in the proposed change is that if you are a generic entity, so you have a turnover in excess of 35 million, they want to bump it to 50 million. If you do not do ownership and comply with a minimum of 40%, which is 10% shares to be in the hands of black people, they will penalize you and it will drop by 2 levels. Right? So if you are level 4, you will now be considered a level 6 BEE contributor. If you are a qualifying small enterprise with turnovers between 5 and 35 million, you will drop a 1 BEE level. If you have a level 4, you will drop to a level 5. And what's more important in terms of that as well is that the thresholds have changed. The point systems have changed. If you do not comply with ownership, which is what, 25 points, the highest you can achieve on your BEE certificate for QSE or generic company is a level 5 BEE contributor. It's quite low. That's the highest you can get if you get full points for everything else. So it becomes very important to comply with the sub-minimum elements. Besides ownership, what are the other 2? Skills development is 1. You're training your staff. You're upgrading and skilling all your staff. Again, do not have a 40% sub-minimum, you will be penalized again. The last element is saying for your enterprise and supplier development, if you are not assisting black-owned SMMEs in a variety of ways, all right, again, you will be penalized. For generic, you will drop 2 levels. For qualifying small enterprise, you will drop a 1 BEE level. So it becomes very important to say